The sea whispered, just as it always had, brushing gently against the shore in rhythmic sighs. Michael Lewis stood on the back deck of the beach house, coffee in hand, watching the morning light spill across the Atlantic. He loved the stillness, that rare kind that settled over this strip of Carolina coast before the world woke up. This place was his pride. He'd drawn the plans on napkins during night shifts and watched it rise beam by beam over 4 long years. It was more than just a house, it was a promise. A legacy for Emily and the kids. A retreat where his family could breathe, laugh, and grow. But now, something felt off. Emily had been distant lately. Not cruel, not cold, just absent in a way he couldn't quite name. Her laughter came delayed. Her phone was always on silent. She had started making last-minute trips to visit her sister, though she rarely mentioned details. Michael trusted her. He always had. They'd met in college, fallen fast and hard. She'd been wild, untamable in some ways, and he'd been the steady one. The rock. Still, something tugged at him. Something unspoken. He looked down at his phone. The screen blinked with a message he hadn't yet opened. It was from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but I think you deserve to know the truth about your wife." His breath caught. He stared at the words, the sea, the deck beneath his bare feet. Then opened the message. There were photos. Not indecent, but damning in their familiarity. Emily in Wilmington, stepping out of a hotel with a man Michael didn't recognize. Her hand on his arm. Smiling in that way she used to smile at him. The coffee cooled in his hand as the silence around him thickened. Michael didn't cry. He didn't scream. He stared at the horizon until the sun rose completely, then walked inside and set the cup in the sink like he always did. Later that day, he sat at his desk and printed out the photos. He wasn't one to accuse without proof, and now he had it. Still, something inside him resisted fury. It wasn't in his nature. Instead, he felt hollow. Quiet. Strategic. Emily was due to come down to the beach house next weekend, alone, she'd said, for some time to think. Now, Michael had other plans. He picked up his phone and called the number that had sent the message. A woman's voice answered. "Julia." "Julia," Michael said quietly. "I think our lives are about to get very complicated." There was a pause. Then she replied, "I think they already are." Emily always said the beach cleared her mind. That's what she told Daniel as they drove down the coast, her bare feet on the dashboard, sunglasses hiding the twitch of nerves in her eyes. "This house is ours for the weekend," she smiled. "My husband built it, actually. Every board." Daniel arched a brow. "Isn't that risky?" Emily shrugged. "Michael's never here in July. He's working. Always working." Daniel didn't press further. He was used to secrets. He had his own. A wife, kids. A corporate job that paid for silence and pretended everything was clean. But as they pulled into the driveway, the house stood still and pristine, like something out of a coastal magazine, and Daniel felt a chill beneath the sun. Inside, the air was thick with salt and memory. Emily moved quickly, almost nervously, opening windows, pouring wine before they even unpacked. She wanted this to feel natural, easy. It didn't. Daniel watched her closely. "You okay?" She smiled too fast. "Perfect. Just. Feels strange to be here without the kids." He looked around. "Feels strange to be here, period. You sure your husband won't show up?" Emily kissed him before he could say more. "I told you. He trusts me. That's what makes this work." But she didn't believe her own words. Upstairs, behind a half-open closet door, a tiny red light blinked. Quiet. Watching. In the room across the hall, Julia sat silently, headset pressed to one ear, the receiver feeding audio from the kitchen below. "He trusts me. That's what makes this work." Julia's jaw tightened. Next to her, Michael sat with his hands clasped, staring down at the wood grain on the floor. He hadn't spoken much since she arrived the night before, carrying a laptop, a file folder, and a storm in her eyes. It had started for her 6 months ago, with a credit card bill that didn't make sense. Then an online receipt to a restaurant she'd never been to, and never would, because Daniel had paid for dinner for 2 on the same night she was in the hospital with their son. Julia had dug. Quietly. Thoroughly. Until she found Emily. At first, she had wanted revenge. She wanted the pain to mean something. But now, sitting beside Michael, she wanted more than vengeance. She wanted clarity. "You ready?" she asked. Michael nodded once. Downstairs, Emily was pouring a second glass of wine when the front door creaked open. She froze. "Michael?" she called, voice shaking. No answer. She turned, heart pounding, only to find herself face to face with Julia. For a moment, time stalled. Emily's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Julia tilted her head, calm. "Emily." Daniel appeared from the kitchen, wine in hand, then stopped cold when he saw her. "Jules?" Behind Julia, Michael stepped into the room. The silence became suffocating. "You shouldn't be here," Emily said, finally finding her voice, brittle and small. Michael looked around the room slowly, then back at her. "Neither should he." Emily swallowed. "Michael, don't lie," he said softly. "Not here. Not now." Julia turned to Daniel. "I told you I'd find out. You really thought I'd never know?" Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no good lies left. Emily started to cry. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispered. "It just did. You were always working. You stopped seeing me, Michael. I built this house for you," Michael said. "For our family." "I didn't ask for it," she snapped suddenly, the mask breaking. "You built a monument to your own sacrifice and expected me to worship it." Julia's lip curled. "You cheated in a house your husband built with his own hands. And dragged my husband here to do it. That takes a special kind of cold." Daniel stepped forward. "We didn't come here to hurt anyone. This isn't what it looks like." Michael laughed once, low, bitter. "Oh, I promise it is." Then he pulled something from his pocket. A voice recorder. He hit play. Emily's voice filled the room. "He trusts me. That's what makes this work." Her face drained of color. "I didn't want to believe it," Michael said. "But then Julia showed me the money transfers. The hidden account. You weren't just cheating on me. You were planning to leave, with our savings." Emily shook her head. No, I was going to tell you." "You already did," Julia interrupted coldly. "You just didn't know we were listening." The room held a breathless silence. Then Michael spoke, calm and steady. "I'm filing for divorce. The lawyers have everything they need. The house, the accounts, they're protected now." Emily blinked, stunned. You planned this?" "I let you come here," he said. "Because I needed to see it with my own eyes. I needed to know who I was really married to." Julia turned to Daniel. "And you're out of the house. I already changed the locks. Our lawyers will be in touch." Daniel looked at her, stunned. "You set me up?" She nodded. "I gave you enough rope. You hung yourself." Michael walked to the door, then paused. "You both should leave," he said. "Now." Emily's voice cracked. "Michael, please. This isn't who I really am." He met her eyes. "That's the thing, Em. It is." Emily didn't leave right away. After the confrontation, she'd stormed outside in a daze, Daniel trailing behind her like a ghost. Now she stood at the edge of the dune grass, staring at the ocean with arms wrapped around her middle. It felt like watching her life collapse in slow motion, but the worst part was, she couldn't even summon real surprise. A part of her had always known this would end badly. Just not this badly. Inside, Julia slammed a kitchen drawer closed. "She's still here," she said, peeking through the curtain. "He is too. Like we asked them to come for brunch." Michael rubbed his eyes. "Let them have their 5 minutes. They'll have nowhere to go soon." Julia turned sharply. "You're still too soft on her." He looked up. "I'm not. I just don't want to be cruel." "She didn't offer you that courtesy," Julia snapped. "You think this was just an affair? Look." She pulled a manila folder from her tote bag and handed it over. Michael opened it. Bank statements. Shell company registration. Emails. One photo of Emily sitting across from a man in a suit, not Daniel, in what looked like a lawyer's office. "What is this?" he asked, his voice low. Julia's jaw was tight. "A man in Wilmington who helps people hide assets. Your wife was preparing to file for divorce. She just didn't want you to know until she moved the money." Michael felt like the floor had fallen out beneath him. "She was transferring funds to a dummy account, small amounts, spread out. Nothing obvious. My friend in financial crimes flagged it when I gave him her name." He stared at the paperwork. Emily hadn't just betrayed him emotionally. She was dismantling his life behind his back. So she was going to clean me out. Julia nodded. And when she had enough, you'd have come home to an empty closet and an empty account. Michael set the folder down slowly, like it might explode. I didn't think she had it in her, he said softly. She did. And Daniel knew. I'm sure of it. They weren't just cheating. They were planning. Outside, a car door slammed. Julia moved to the window again. They're getting in his car. Finally. Michael didn't move. His hand rested on the folder, the evidence, the truth. Something inside him felt like it had died. But something else had woken up. The next morning, Emily tried calling. He let it go to voicemail. 5 times. Each message shorter. More panicked. On the 6th, she texted. I made a mistake. Please let's talk. You don't understand everything. Michael read it once. Then deleted it. He forwarded all messages to his attorney, along with the contents of the folder Julia had given him. There was no more pretending. That afternoon, Julia met him at a quiet cafe inland. The salt air was gone, replaced by buzzing cicadas and the clink of iced tea glasses. I filed this morning, she said. Daniel's frozen out of the joint accounts. His parents are already asking questions. Michael gave a tired nod. I signed the retainer. My lawyer thinks we can prove premeditated fraud. Julia sipped her drink. Good. Nail her. But Michael didn't speak right away. Instead, he looked out the window, watching a kid ride by on a bike, laughing. I don't know who I was married to, he said finally. She wanted me to be safe, predictable. And I was. I thought that was enough. She wanted someone she could manipulate, Julia said flatly. She thought you'd never find out. Same with Daniel. He thought I'd be too scared to act. You weren't. She shrugged. I had to become someone else. A little ruthless. I don't like it, but I needed it. Michael looked at her. I think I did too. They sat in silence a moment. Not quite friends, not quite allies, but something had shifted. Julia finally said, You're not the man she thought you were? That's her mistake. Michael nodded. And you're not the woman he thought you were? That's his mistake. They clinked iced tea glasses like a quiet toast. Back at the beach house, Michael began packing his things. It no longer felt like home. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He left behind the framed photo on the mantel, the one of him, Emily, and the kids building a sandcastle. He didn't need the reminder. He took the blueprints instead. The ones he drew when the idea for the house was still a dream. Still pure. He'd build something new. Meanwhile, across town, Daniel sat in a motel room lit by TV glow. His phone buzzed with a single text from Julia. Tell the truth. Or I will. He didn't reply. He opened his laptop instead, navigated to an encrypted email draft, one Emily had written weeks ago, addressed to a Cayman bank account manager. He stared at it for a long time. Then he clicked forward, attached the email trail, and added a note. To be shared with both attorneys. He hit send. Because when everything broke, he realized something horrifying. Emily had been using him, too. The deposition room was windowless and cold. Michael sat with his attorney on one side of the polished oak table. Across from him, Emily looked thinner, paler, a shadow of the woman who used to light up every room. But there was still steel in her spine. Her lawyer, a sharp-suited man named Kent, adjusted his glasses and glanced between the files and Emily's stiff face. Julia was there too, sitting at the end of the table, arms crossed, her own attorney beside her. Her expression hadn't changed since she walked in, unreadable, composed. The silence buzzed like tension on a tightrope. Then Michael's lawyer slid a document across the table. Let's begin. Emily didn't speak at first. She scanned the page with trembling fingers, itemized transfers, dating back 9 months. Thousands of dollars, shuffled across accounts, all traceable. I told you, Kent said softly to her, they have a case for fraud. We should negotiate. Emily's voice was brittle. This is all a misunderstanding. Julia scoffed. Misunderstanding? You were building a getaway fund with your lover in the same house your husband built. And don't act like you didn't know Daniel was married. You knew. You didn't care. Michael stayed quiet. He wasn't here to scream or punish. He was here to finish what Emily started, just not the way she wanted. His lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. Lewis has agreed to an equitable division of property, excluding the house and trust, which we can prove was funded prior to the marriage and is legally protected. The funds you attempted to move offshore," he tapped the folder, "will be returned in full or we will pursue criminal charges for financial deception and pre-divorce fraud." Emily flinched. Michael finally spoke. His voice was calm, but it sliced deeper than yelling ever could. "I don't care why you did what you did, Emily. I care that you tried to break me and our family for your own escape. And I might have believed your lies. If not for her." He nodded to Julia. Emily's eyes snapped to Julia, lips parting, some desperate attempt to regain footing. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," she whispered. "But you did," Julia snapped. "You hurt everyone. And for what? A fantasy? You were going to disappear with the money and him?" She gestured vaguely, disgusted. "He folded like a paper cup when we confronted him. You think he would have protected you if things got ugly?" Emily didn't answer. Michael leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Here's what's going to happen. You'll sign the divorce. You'll return the money. And you'll walk away." "No alimony?" Ken asked, blinking. Michael gave a sad smile. "She can keep her dignity. If there's any left." That night, the beach house sat empty. The waves rolled in like they always had, but the silence inside was different now, not the quiet of betrayal, but the stillness that follows a storm. Michael walked the halls slowly, running his hand along the grain of the walls he'd sanded himself. He didn't cry. He didn't rage. Instead, he lit a fire in the outdoor pit and sat in one of the Adirondack chairs he built from leftover cedar. The stars were brutal in their clarity. His phone buzzed once. A text from Julia. He signed too. "Full confession. Divorce granted. I'm free." He typed back. "Same here. Strange, isn't it?" "What?" "How freedom feels like quiet instead of fireworks." "I'll take the quiet," she replied. "I've earned it." 3 weeks later, the court rulings came through. Michael retained full ownership of the house. Emily forfeited all claims to spousal support. The offshore account was liquidated and returned. Julia received full custody of her children. Daniel, in a move that surprised everyone, voluntarily surrendered his claim to the family home. Perhaps guilt, or fear. Maybe both. A small news outlet in Wilmington even picked up the story in vague terms: "Local businessmen caught in marital, financial scandal involving offshore funds, and infidelity." Names weren't printed. But people knew. They always did. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, Julia knocked on Michael's door. He opened it slowly, wearing a faded t-shirt and a look of surprised curiosity. She held out a box of pastries. "Peace offering. And caffeine." He stepped aside. "You didn't have to bring anything." "I wanted to. Thought we could talk. Maybe even not talk." He smiled slightly. "That I can do." They sat on the deck in silence for a long while, sipping coffee and listening to the ocean. Finally, she said, "We both lost people we thought we knew." He nodded. "We did. But we didn't lose ourselves." Michael looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone different now. Not just a betrayed wife, not just a woman burned by love, but someone forged in fire. Hardened, but whole. "No," he said. "We found something, too. Just didn't know we were looking." She tilted her head. "You ever think maybe we were the lucky ones?" He gave a wry smile. "Ask me in 6 months." They both laughed, not bitterly this time, but something close to light. That night, as Julia drove away, Michael stood on the porch, watching the last of the sun bleed over the water. He wasn't thinking of Emily. Not anymore. He was thinking of how endings sometimes arrive as quiet mercies. Not in thunder, but in stillness. He was thinking, for the first time in a long time, about beginning again. 6 months later, the beach house looked different, not in structure, but in soul. Michael had replaced the old porch lights with warm Edison bulbs. He'd painted the bedroom a soft navy blue. New towels, new linens, new life. What had once been a shrine to someone else's dream was now finally, quietly, his own. The court battles were behind him. The documents signed, the accounts closed, the damage assessed and cleaned up. The betrayal lingered, yes, but more like a scar than a wound. A reminder of what he'd survived. He'd gone back to work, poured himself into his projects with a clearer sense of purpose. He had even picked up his old camera again, snapping sunrise shots from the deck each morning like he used to, before everything blurred. One morning in February, he sold his first framed print at a local gallery. It wasn't much, but it was his. Julia had moved across the river, closer to her sister and the school her sons now attended. The house was small, modest, but peaceful. She'd gone back to work, too, consulting part-time for a non-profit that helped women navigate financial independence after divorce. The irony wasn't lost on her. What was lost, she decided, was worth leaving behind. Daniel had tried, once, to reconcile, not romantically, just apologetically. He wrote her a long email. She didn't respond. He had already said everything in his silence before, when it mattered. Now, his words meant nothing. What meant everything was the quiet moments, making pancakes with her sons on Sundays. Waking up without dread. Laughing, not because she had to, but because she could. On the first day of spring, Julia returned to the beach house. She didn't announce it. She parked on the sandy shoulder and walked along the edge of the property like someone approaching a church, reverent, unsure. Michael saw her through the kitchen window. He didn't rush to the door. He didn't panic. He simply smiled. When he opened it, she looked up at him with something like amusement. "Thought I might find you here." "I live here," he said, laughing. "Right," she nodded. "Still feels weird, though. Like time stopped." "It didn't," he said, stepping aside. "We just walked through it." They sat again on the deck. This time, there were no broken hearts. No files. No plans. Just them. Two people who had been dragged through fire and came out blinking in the sunlight. Julia ran her hand along the wooden armrest of her chair. "You ever think about what might have happened if we never found out?" Michael thought a moment. "Yeah. I'd still be lying to myself. And I'd still be making excuses for him." They sat with that truth, not in pain, but with a strange, clean acceptance. Then Julia glanced at him. "You seeing anyone?" Michael chuckled. "No. You?" "No." Another silence. Then Julia said, "You know, when everything first blew up, I thought I'd never feel normal again." "Same," Michael said. "But now I don't want to go back to normal," she admitted. "I want something better. Clearer. Slower." Michael turned to her. "Me too." Their eyes met. No sparks, no fireworks, just something steady. Like tide meeting shore. "You hungry?" he asked. She smiled. "Always." He stood, offering her his hand. "I make a mean shrimp scampi." "Does it come with wine?" "The good kind." She took his hand, let him pull her up. "Then I'm in." Dinner was easy. Laughter came easily, too. They ate by candlelight, not romantically, but with the comfort of survivors who no longer had anything to prove. Julia stood to leave just before midnight. Michael walked her out to her car, the night air warm and alive with the sea. Before getting in, she looked at him. Really looked. "You're not the same man I met in that upstairs room, hiding behind a closet door." He smiled. "Neither are you." She hesitated. "You ever think we were meant to cross paths for a reason?" "I do," he said. "Not to fall apart, but to rebuild." She touched his arm. "Good night, Michael." He leaned in, not to kiss her, but just to hold her for a moment. "Good night, Julia." Weeks passed. Spring turned to early summer. Life returned to the shore in full color, bonfires, gulls, sunscreen, music drifting from porches. Michael stayed close to the water, working during the day, photographing in the golden hour, living with a rhythm that finally made sense. Julia visited more often. Sometimes with her boys. Sometimes just for an hour and coffee. No one labeled what they were. They didn't need to. They were healing. They were whole. On the one-year anniversary of the day Emily brought Daniel to the house, the day everything began to unravel, Michael stood on the porch at sunrise, alone. He didn't feel bitterness. He didn't feel loss. He felt free. He took one photo, the sky erupting in gold over a calm sea, and printed it later that afternoon. He titled it, "Beginning."